Sarah Martinez adjusted her tactical vest one more time as she walked toward the ammunition depot's main gate. The morning sun cast long shadows across the military compound, and she could feel the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders like a heavy blanket. At 24, she was one of the youngest soldiers ever assigned to guard duty at this particular facility, and she knew that fact hadn't gone unnoticed by her fellow service members. The ammunition depot sprawled across 12 acres of heavily secured military property, containing enough explosive materials to level half the city if mishandled. Concrete bunkers dotted the landscape like sleeping giants, each one housing different types of ordnance that required specific storage conditions and security protocols. Sarah had spent the last 3 weeks studying every manual, memorizing every procedure, and walking every inch of the perimeter until she could navigate the facility blindfolded. Her combat boots crunched against the gravel as she approached the checkpoint where Sergeant Williams was finishing the night shift. The older man looked tired, his face showing the strain of 12 hours of constant vigilance. He had been working at the depot for nearly 8 years, and his experience showed in the way he moved with practiced efficiency through his final security checks. "Morning, Martinez," Williams called out as she drew closer. "Ready for another exciting day of watching concrete walls?" Sarah managed a small smile despite her nerves. Williams had been one of the few soldiers who hadn't questioned her assignment when she first arrived. While others whispered about her age and experience level, he had simply focused on teaching her the job properly. His mentorship had been invaluable during those first overwhelming weeks when every shadow seemed like a potential threat. "As ready as anyone can be, Sergeant," she replied, pulling out her logbook to review the overnight reports. "Anything unusual happen during your shift?" Williams shook his head as he began gathering his equipment. "Quiet night. Had a deer test the perimeter fence around 0300 hours, but the motion sensors picked it up right away. Other than that, just the usual routine patrols and equipment checks. The environmental monitoring systems are all green, and I completed the hourly bunker inspections without any issues." Sarah nodded, making notes in her logbook. The environmental monitoring was crucial because temperature and humidity fluctuations could affect the stored ammunition. Each bunker had sophisticated climate control systems that required constant monitoring, and any deviation from acceptable parameters had to be reported immediately to the commanding officer. As Williams prepared to leave, he paused and looked at her seriously. "Listen, Martinez, I know some of the guys have been giving you a hard time about being here. Don't let it get to you. You've proven yourself capable, and that's what matters. Just stay alert, follow procedures, and trust your training." The comment hit closer to home than Sarah wanted to admit. She had worked twice as hard as anyone else to earn her position, knowing that any mistake would be magnified because of her gender and age. The military was slowly changing, but old attitudes died hard, especially in specialized roles that had traditionally been male-dominated. Every day felt like a test that she couldn't afford to fail. "Thanks, Sergeant. I appreciate that," she said, meaning every word. Williams had never made her feel like she didn't belong, unlike some others who seemed to view her presence as a social experiment rather than a legitimate assignment. After Williams departed, Sarah began her morning routine with methodical precision. She started with a complete perimeter walk, checking every section of the double-layer security fence for signs of tampering or damage. The fence was equipped with motion sensors, infrared cameras, and pressure plates that could detect even small animals attempting to breach the perimeter. The morning air was crisp and carried the scent of desert sage from the hills beyond the compound. Sarah had grown up in a small farming town in Kansas, and the wide-open spaces of the military base reminded her of home in some ways. However, the constant underlying tension of guarding such dangerous materials never let her completely relax and enjoy the scenery. As she completed her perimeter check, Sarah's radio crackled to life. The voice belonged to Corporal Jackson, who was stationed at the main gate about half a mile away. His tone carried an unusual note of excitement that immediately caught her attention. "Martinez, you need to know we've got some VIP movement heading your way. Looks like someone important is coming for an inspection. I don't have all the details yet, but make sure everything is squared away at your position." Sarah felt her pulse quicken. Surprise inspections were rare at the ammunition depot, and they usually meant someone high up the chain of command had concerns about security or operations. She quickly keyed her radio to acknowledge the message while mentally running through her checklist to ensure everything was in perfect order. "Copy that, Jackson. Any word on timeline or who we're expecting?" "Negative on specifics, but I guess you've got maybe 20 minutes. The convoy that just passed through looked pretty official. Multiple vehicles with serious security. 20 minutes. Sarah broke into a jog as she headed back toward the main depot buildings. She needed to complete a final inspection of all her assigned areas and make sure her logbooks were current and properly formatted. Any discrepancy, no matter how small, could reflect poorly on the entire facility's operations. The main depot building contained the administrative offices and central monitoring station where all the electronic security systems converged. Sarah's duty station was located here, positioned so she could observe multiple camera feeds while maintaining radio contact with other security personnel throughout the compound. She quickly reviewed the overnight logs one more time, checking timestamps and making sure Williams had properly documented all his activities. Everything looked correct, but she double-checked the environmental readings from each bunker to ensure all systems were operating within normal parameters. The last thing she wanted was to have some minor technical issue discovered during a high-level inspection. As she worked, Sarah couldn't help but wonder who might be coming. Inspections at this level typically involved either Pentagon officials checking on security protocols or senior military commanders ensuring proper weapons storage procedures were being followed. Either way, it meant someone with significant authority was about to scrutinize every aspect of their operation. The radio crackled again, this time with Jackson's voice carrying more urgency. "Martinez, they're about 5 minutes out. Looks like a full escort detail with some serious hardware. Whatever this is about, it's bigger than a routine inspection." Sarah felt butterflies in her stomach as she completed her final preparations. She straightened her uniform, checked that her weapon was properly secured, and made sure her identification tags were visible. First impressions mattered in the military, especially when dealing with senior officers who had decades of experience and little patience for anything less than perfection. Through the monitoring station's windows, she could see dust clouds on the horizon indicating approaching vehicles. The compound's main road was the only way in or out, and it stretched across nearly 2 miles of open desert before reaching the depot's outer security perimeter. Sarah could make out at least 4 vehicles in the convoy, which suggested this was indeed a significant visit. Her hands felt slightly shaky as she checked her equipment one last time. The sidearm holstered at her hip was loaded and ready, though she hoped it would never be needed. The radio clipped to her vest was set to the proper frequencies, and her logbook was open to the current day's entries. Everything was as ready as she could make it. The sound of engines grew louder as the convoy approached the inner security checkpoint. Sarah positioned herself at the depot's main entrance, standing at attention as she had been trained. Protocol required her to remain at her post unless specifically ordered otherwise, but she wanted to be visible and ready to assist if needed. The first vehicle came into view around the bend in the access road. It was a standard military transport, but Sarah could see additional communications equipment mounted on its roof. The second vehicle appeared to be an armored personnel carrier, its dark windows making it impossible to see inside. The third was another transport vehicle, and the fourth looked like a command and control unit with even more sophisticated antenna arrays. As the convoy pulled up to the depot's main building, Sarah felt her heart rate increase. This was clearly more than a routine inspection. The level of security and the specialized vehicles suggested someone very important was about to step out of one of those transports. She took a deep breath and reminded herself that she had trained for this moment, even if she hadn't expected it to come so soon. The engine shut off one by one, and Sarah could hear car doors opening and closing. Voices carried across the morning air, though she couldn't make out specific words from her position. She remained at attention, waiting for someone to approach or for radio instructions about how to proceed. Heavy footsteps approached from around the side of the lead vehicle, and Sarah prepared herself to meet whoever was about to test everything she had learned about military protocol and ammunition depot security. The butterflies in her stomach seemed to multiply as she realized this moment would likely define how the rest of her assignment would unfold. A figure appeared around the corner of the transport vehicle, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The man walking toward her wore the uniform of a Navy SEAL commander, his ribbons and insignia indicating extensive combat experience and high-level security clearances. He moved with the confident stride of someone accustomed to dangerous situations and life-or-death decisions. Commander Hayes stood about 6 feet tall with graying hair at his temples that spoke of years of military service. His uniform was perfectly pressed despite the early hour and long drive to reach the depot. Most striking were his eyes, which seemed to take in every detail of his surroundings with the sharp focus of someone trained to spot threats and assess situations quickly. Sarah had never met a Navy SEAL commander before, but she had heard stories about their training and capabilities. These were the elite soldiers called upon for the most dangerous and sensitive missions in the military. The fact that one was now standing at her ammunition depot meant something significant was happening, though she had no idea what that might be. "Soldier," Commander Hayes said as he approached, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. "I'm Commander Hayes. I understand you're the duty officer for this facility today." "Yes, sir," Sarah replied, snapping to attention with textbook precision. "Private First Class Sarah Martinez, sir. I've been assigned to security watch at this depot for 3 weeks." Commander Hayes nodded and began a slow walk around the immediate area, his trained eyes examining everything from the positioning of security cameras to the condition of the access roads. Sarah remained at attention but followed his movements, ready to answer any questions or provide assistance if requested. 3 weeks, he repeated thoughtfully. That's not very long to learn all the intricacies of a facility like this. How confident are you in your knowledge of the security protocols and emergency procedures? The question felt like a test, and Sarah knew her answer would be scrutinized carefully. She had studied every manual and procedure until she could recite them from memory, but 3 weeks was indeed a short time compared to soldiers like Sergeant Williams who had years of experience. "Sir, I've completed all required training and have been mentored by experienced personnel familiar with this facility. I'm confident in my ability to execute all standard procedures and respond appropriately to emergency situations. However, I also recognize that experience comes with time, and I continue to learn something new each day on duty." Commander Hayes stopped walking and turned to look at her directly. His expression was unreadable, but Sarah sensed he was evaluating not just her words but her overall demeanor and competence. She maintained eye contact while keeping her posture military perfect, drawing on every lesson she had learned about presenting herself professionally under pressure. "That's a good answer, Private Martinez. Confidence balanced with humility. Too much of either can be dangerous in a position like yours." He gestured toward the bunker complex visible in the distance. "Show me your daily inspection routine. I want to see how you handle the standard procedures." Sarah felt a mix of relief and nervousness as she began leading Commander Hayes through her inspection protocols. This was familiar territory where she knew exactly what to do and how to do it properly. At the same time, she was acutely aware that every step was being evaluated by someone with far more experience and authority than anyone who had previously observed her work. They walked toward the first bunker in her inspection route, and Sarah began explaining the security measures and monitoring systems. Commander Hayes listened without interrupting, occasionally asking pointed questions that demonstrated his own familiarity with ammunition storage procedures. His presence was both intimidating and oddly reassuring, as it became clear he understood the complexity and importance of the job she was doing. As they approached the bunker's entrance, Sarah noticed something that made her heart skip a beat. The environmental monitoring panel was showing a yellow warning light instead of the normal green. It was a minor deviation, probably just a sensor requiring calibration, but it was something that hadn't been there during her earlier inspection. She felt Commander Hayes' eyes on her as she paused to examine the panel more closely. This was exactly the kind of moment that could make or break an impression during a high-level inspection. Sarah took a deep breath and decided to handle it exactly as she had been trained, regardless of who was watching. "Sir, I need to check this environmental monitoring alert before we proceed. It's showing a deviation that wasn't present during my morning inspection." She pulled out her radio to contact the maintenance personnel while simultaneously beginning the troubleshooting procedures outlined in her manual. Commander Hayes said nothing but continued watching as Sarah worked through the problem systematically. She could feel the weight of his evaluation, knowing that how she handled this unexpected situation would reveal more about her competence than any perfect routine inspection could have demonstrated. The morning sun climbed higher as Sarah focused on resolving the monitoring issue, unaware that this moment would mark the beginning of a relationship that would change both their lives forever. Commander Hayes had come to the depot for reasons she didn't yet understand, but fate had arranged for him to witness her handling a real problem rather than just a scripted demonstration. As Sarah completed her diagnostic procedures, she had no way of knowing that the man watching her work was facing his own professional crisis, or that her competence and dedication would soon become crucial to a mission that would test both their limits. The ammunition depot's quiet routine was about to be shattered by events that would push them both far beyond anything their training had prepared them for. The yellow warning light continued to blink as Sarah methodically worked through each step of the troubleshooting protocol, her movements precise despite the pressure of being observed. Commander Hayes remained silent, but his expression suggested he was forming conclusions about her capabilities based on how she handled this unexpected challenge. Neither of them realized that this moment was just the beginning of a story that would unfold across dangerous missions, personal revelations, and a connection that would survive tests neither could have imagined. The morning that had started as a routine security watch was about to become the foundation for something much more significant than either Sarah or Commander Hayes could have anticipated. The diagnostic procedure took Sarah nearly 15 minutes to complete properly. She worked methodically through each step while Commander Hayes observed in silence, his presence adding pressure to what should have been a routine maintenance check. The environmental monitoring system was one of the most critical safety features at the depot, and any malfunction had to be treated with absolute seriousness. Sarah discovered that a humidity sensor in Bunker 7 was reading slightly outside normal parameters. It wasn't in immediate danger, but protocol required documentation and notification of maintenance personnel. She carefully logged the readings in her inspection report while simultaneously coordinating with the on-call technician via radio. "Maintenance control, this is Martinez at the ammunition depot. I have a humidity sensor showing amber readings in Bunker 7. Requesting priority response for sensor calibration and system verification," she spoke into her radio with professional clarity. Commander Hayes stepped closer as she completed the radio call. "How serious is this type of deviation?" he asked, his tone suggesting genuine interest rather than testing. "Sir, humidity fluctuations can affect certain types of ammunition and explosives over time. The deviation we're seeing isn't immediately dangerous, but it could become problematic if left uncorrected. Standard protocol requires addressing any environmental monitoring alerts within 4 hours during normal operations, or immediately if readings enter the red zone." "And how often do you encounter issues like this?" Commander Hayes continued, seemingly impressed by her thorough understanding of the safety protocols. Sarah considered the question carefully. "Since I've been assigned here, this is only the second time I've seen an environmental alert. Sergeant Williams told me they typically occur every few weeks, usually due to normal equipment wear rather than any serious system failure. The sensors are quite sensitive because the safety margins have to be conservative." The maintenance technician's voice crackled through Sarah's radio, confirming he would arrive within 30 minutes to address the sensor issue. Sarah acknowledged the response and updated her logbook with the estimated repair timeline. Commander Hayes watched her document everything with meticulous attention to detail. "Your documentation practices are thorough," he observed as she finished writing. "Who trained you on the administrative requirements?" "Sergeant Williams handled most of my practical training, sir." He emphasized that proper documentation isn't just about following regulations, it's about creating a clear record that other personnel can rely on if something goes wrong during their shifts. Every decision and action needs to be traceable. Commander Hayes nodded approvingly. "Sergeant Williams sounds like a solid NCO. Clear documentation has saved lives in situations where critical information needed to be communicated rapidly between personnel. The habits you develop here will serve you well throughout your military career." As they continued the inspection tour, Sarah noticed that Commander Hayes seemed to be evaluating more than just security procedures. He asked questions about her background, her training, and her long-term military goals. The conversation felt less like an inspection and more like an assessment for some unspecified purpose. "Martinez, what made you request assignment to ammunition depot security?" Commander Hayes asked as they approached the central monitoring station. Sarah hesitated before answering. The truth was complicated, involving her desire to prove herself in a challenging role and her interest in explosive ordnance disposal eventually. However, she wasn't sure how much personal information was appropriate to share during what was supposed to be an official inspection. "Sir, I wanted a position that would give me experience with weapons systems and security protocols. Eventually, I hope to qualify for explosive ordnance disposal training, and I felt this assignment would provide valuable background knowledge. Also, I wanted to prove I could handle responsibility in a high-security environment." Commander Hayes stopped walking and turned to study her face carefully. "EOD training is extremely demanding, both physically and mentally. The selection process eliminates most candidates, and the training itself is among the most challenging in the military. What makes you think you have what it takes?" The question felt like a challenge, but Sarah sensed it was an honest one rather than an attempt to discourage her. Commander Hayes seemed genuinely interested in her response, as if her answer might influence some decision he was contemplating. Sir, I know the statistics about EOD training completion rates. But, I also know that determination and attention to detail are crucial factors in success. I've worked hard to develop both qualities, and I'm willing to push myself beyond what I think my limits might be. I'd rather try and fail than wonder what might have been possible. A slight smile crossed Commander Hayes' face for the first time since his arrival. That's the kind of attitude that actually survives the training. Most people focus on physical requirements or technical knowledge, but mental resilience is what separates those who make it from those who don't. They had reached the central monitoring station, where multiple screens displayed feeds from security cameras positioned throughout the depot complex. Sarah began explaining the surveillance system and the protocols for responding to different types of alerts. Commander Hayes listened attentively while occasionally glancing at his watch, suggesting he was operating under some kind of timeline. The maintenance technician arrived as Sarah was demonstrating the camera controls. She coordinated with him to address the humidity sensor while simultaneously maintaining security protocols. Commander Hayes observed how she balanced multiple responsibilities without compromising any aspect of her duties. Commander Hayes, Sarah said after coordinating the maintenance work, "May I ask what brings you to our facility today? This doesn't appear to be a routine inspection." Commander Hayes was quiet for a long moment, as if deciding how much information to share. "I'm evaluating personnel for a specialized assignment. The mission will require someone with security experience, attention to detail, and the ability to work under extreme pressure. Your name was recommended by someone familiar with your performance here." Sarah felt her heart rate increase. A specialized assignment with a Navy SEAL commander could be the opportunity she had been working toward, but it also suggested involvement in dangerous operations far beyond ammunition depot security. She tried to keep her expression neutral while her mind raced with questions about what such an assignment might involve. "Sir, may I ask who recommended me? I'm not aware of having worked with anyone connected to SEAL operations. Colonel Patterson at base headquarters has been monitoring personnel throughout the region for various operational requirements. Your performance reviews and the feedback from Sergeant Williams caught his attention. He suggested you might be suitable for the type of work my team handles." Sarah knew Colonel Patterson by reputation as a fair but demanding officer who took career development seriously. If he had recommended her for a SEAL assignment, it meant her work at the depot had been noticed at higher levels than she had realized. The knowledge was both flattering and intimidating. "What would such an assignment involve, sir?" she asked carefully, unsure how much detail Commander Hayes would be willing to share. "The specifics are classified, but I can tell you it would involve security work in challenging environments. You'd receive additional training in advanced weapons systems, tactical operations, and specialized communication equipment. The assignments would be temporary but potentially recurring if you proved capable." Commander Hayes paused and looked directly at her. "I need to be clear about something, Martinez. This isn't a promotion or a reward. It's dangerous work that will push your abilities to their limits. Personnel who aren't fully committed often get themselves or others killed. If you're not absolutely certain you want this level of responsibility, it's better to decline now." The warning was sobering, but Sarah felt a surge of excitement despite the dangers he described. This was the kind of opportunity she had joined the military hoping to find a chance to contribute to important missions and develop skills far beyond what normal assignments offered. "Sir, I appreciate your directness about the risks involved. I want you to know that I take those warnings seriously. At the same time, this sounds like exactly the kind of challenge I've been preparing for. If you believe I have the potential to contribute effectively to your team's missions, I'd like the opportunity to prove myself." Commander Hayes studied her for several seconds before nodding slowly. "All right. Here's what happens next. You'll continue your current assignment while we process the necessary security clearances and background investigations. That will take approximately 2 weeks. If everything checks out, you'll receive orders for a 6-week training program designed to prepare personnel for the type of operations my team conducts." Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension as the reality of what he was describing began to sink in. 6 weeks of specialized training followed by potentially dangerous missions was far beyond anything she had experienced. At the same time, it represented exactly the kind of career advancement she had been working toward. "What should I tell Sergeant Williams and the other personnel here about my potential reassignment?" she asked, thinking about the practical implications.
Nothing, for now. Security clearance investigations require discretion, and premature disclosure could complicate the process. Continue performing your current duties at the highest level, and let the administrative process run its course. If you're selected for the program, your chain of command will be notified through proper channels. The maintenance technician's radio call interrupted their conversation. He had completed the sensor calibration and needed Sarah to verify the system was showing normal readings. She excused herself to handle the technical coordination while Commander Hayes waited nearby. The environmental monitoring panel now displayed solid green lights across all parameters.
Sarah documented the completion of maintenance work and confirmed that all systems were operating within normal specifications. The efficient resolution of a minor problem had demonstrated her ability to handle routine challenges while managing higher-level responsibilities simultaneously. System is back to normal operational status, she reported to Commander Hayes. Maintenance completed the sensor calibration and verified all environmental controls are functioning properly. Good work managing that situation while handling our discussion.
Multitasking under pressure is a crucial skill for the type of assignments I'm considering you for.
Commander Hayes checked his watch again. I need to return to my unit, but I wanted to see your facility firsthand before making my recommendation.
As they walked back toward the convoy of vehicles, Sarah felt the weight of the conversation settling over her.
The possibility of working with the Navy SEAL team represented everything she had hoped to achieve in the military, but it also carried risks and responsibilities she could barely imagine. Martinez, Commander Hayes said as they reached his vehicle, I want you to understand something important. The recommendation I'm going to make will be based on what I observed here today. Your technical competence, your handling of an unexpected problem, and your attitude toward challenging assignments. Those qualities suggest you have the foundation needed for more advanced training.
However, he continued, the final selection process will test you in ways that depot security never could.
Physical conditioning, psychological resilience, technical aptitude, and decision-making under extreme stress. Not everyone who looks promising in a controlled environment can perform when everything goes wrong simultaneously.
Sarah nodded seriously. I understand, sir. I know I'll have to prove myself all over again if I'm given the opportunity.
But I'm confident that the foundation you mentioned will serve me well, regardless of how challenging the selection process might be. Commander Hayes extended his hand for a firm handshake.
I believe you have the right mindset to succeed, Martinez.
Continue focusing on excellence in your current role, and be prepared for new challenges if the clearance process goes smoothly.
Someone will contact you within 2 weeks with either orders for additional training or notification that you weren't selected for the program.
As the convoy prepared to depart, Sarah felt a profound sense that her life was about to change dramatically. The routine security assignment that had seemed like a stepping stone toward future opportunities was suddenly revealing itself as the foundation for something much more significant than she had imagined. She watched the vehicles disappear down the access road while mentally replaying every moment of her interaction with Commander Hayes. His evaluation would determine whether she remained at the ammunition depot for the duration of her assignment or embarked on a journey that could define the rest of her military career.
The maintenance technician finished packing his equipment and approached Sarah's position near the monitoring station. Everything's running smooth now, he reported.
That sensor just needed a minor calibration adjustment.
Probably won't give you any more trouble for several months.
Thanks for responding so quickly, Sarah replied, though her mind was still focused on the implications of Commander Hayes' visit. I'll note in the logbook that the system has been fully restored to normal operation. As the morning progressed toward afternoon, Sarah found it difficult to concentrate on routine duties. Every radio call and vehicle approach seemed to carry the potential for additional surprises. The possibility of SEAL training occupied her thoughts despite her efforts to focus on immediate responsibilities.
Sergeant Williams returned that evening to relieve her from duty.
He immediately noticed something different about her demeanor, though she tried to maintain her normal professional composure. The events of the day had left her energized but unsettled, knowing that her future might be determined by processes entirely beyond her control.
Everything go smoothly today?
Williams asked as he reviewed her logbook entries.
Yes, Sergeant.
Had a minor environmental monitoring alert this morning that required maintenance response, but it was resolved quickly.
Everything else was routine.
Sarah kept her report factual while omitting any mention of Commander Hayes' visit or their discussion about potential reassignment.
Williams nodded as he read her documentation. Good job handling the sensor issue properly.
These things happen occasionally, and the important thing is following procedures exactly.
Looks like you documented everything correctly. As Sarah gathered her equipment to leave, she felt the weight of secrets she couldn't share.
The next 2 weeks would determine whether her conversation with Commander Hayes had been a career-defining opportunity or simply an interesting encounter with no lasting impact. The drive back to her quarters gave her time to process the day's events more fully. The possibility of working with elite military units represented everything she had hoped to achieve, but it also meant leaving behind the relative safety and predictability of depot security for challenges she couldn't fully anticipate. That night, Sarah found it difficult to sleep as her mind replayed Commander Hayes' words about dangerous assignments and the high standards required for selection. She had committed herself to pursuing the opportunity, but now she faced 2 weeks of uncertainty while security clearance investigators examined every aspect of her background and character. The ammunition depot would continue its quiet routine while she waited for news that could change everything. Whether her future lay in continued security work or specialized operations with a Navy SEAL team, Sarah knew she would approach each day with the same dedication and attention to detail that had brought this opportunity into her life. The waiting period ahead would test her patience as much as any future training program might test her abilities. 2 weeks passed with agonizing slowness as Sarah maintained her duties at the ammunition depot while waiting for word about her potential assignment with Commander Hayes' team. Every phone call and official-looking vehicle that approached the facility made her heart race, wondering if news about her future was finally arriving. She threw herself into her work with even greater intensity, knowing that her performance during this period might still influence the final decision. The background investigation process remained invisible to her, but Sarah knew that investigators were quietly examining every aspect of her life. Former teachers, neighbors, and military personnel who had worked with her were being interviewed about her character, reliability, and potential security risks. The thoroughness of such investigations was legendary within the military, often uncovering details that even close friends didn't know about each other.
Sergeant Williams had begun to notice subtle changes in Sarah's demeanor, though he couldn't identify the specific cause.
She seemed more focused than usual, if that was even possible, and occasionally appeared lost in thought during quiet moments. When he asked if everything was all right, she assured him that she was simply concentrating on developing her expertise in depot operations. On a Thursday morning that started like any other, Sarah was completing her perimeter inspection when her radio crackled with an urgent message from the base communications center. The voice belonged to Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, who handled personnel assignments for their unit.
Martinez, report to Building 7 immediately for orders pickup.
Time-sensitive material requiring immediate response.
Sarah's heart began pounding as she acknowledged the radio call.
Building 7 housed the administrative offices where personnel received new assignment orders and security briefings. The description of time-sensitive material suggested this was likely the news she had been waiting for, though it could theoretically be any type of urgent administrative matter. She contacted Sergeant Williams to inform him she was temporarily leaving her post for administrative business. Protocol required another qualified person to assume security watch whenever the primary duty officer departed the depot, even for brief periods. Williams arranged for Corporal Thompson to provide temporary coverage while Sarah handled whatever business awaited her at Building 7. The drive to the administrative complex took 15 minutes through base traffic that seemed unusually heavy for mid-morning. Sarah tried to control her anxiety while mentally preparing for either exciting news about SEAL training or disappointing notification that she hadn't been selected for the program. Either way, she would handle the outcome professionally and continue focusing on excellence in whatever role she was assigned. Building 7's lobby contained the typical military administrative atmosphere of hushed conversations and personnel waiting with various forms and documents. Sarah approached the reception desk where a young airman directed her to Conference Room C, explaining that Staff Sergeant Rodriguez was waiting with materials that required her immediate attention. Conference Room C was a small, windowless space furnished with a table, for chairs, and a secure telephone for classified communications. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez was already seated when Sarah entered, along with another person she didn't recognize, a woman in civilian clothes who carried herself with military bearing despite her non-uniform appearance. "Private First Class Martinez, please have a seat," Rodriguez said formally. "This is Ms. Carter from the Defense Security Service. She has some questions related to your background investigation, after which we'll review your new assignment orders." Sarah felt her pulse quicken as she realized this meeting was definitely connected to Commander Hayes' potential assignment. The presence of a security investigator suggested her clearance process had reached a critical stage where final determinations were being made about her suitability for classified work.
MS.
Carter opened a thick folder and began asking detailed questions about Sarah's background, relationships, and motivations for seeking advanced military assignments. The questions were probing but professional, designed to verify information already collected and assess Sarah's honesty about potentially sensitive topics. Martinez, during your interview process, you mentioned wanting to pursue explosive ordnance disposal training eventually.
Can you elaborate on what specifically interests you about that career field? Ms. Carter asked while taking notes.
Ma'am, EOD work represents the intersection of technical knowledge and life-saving capability. The idea of being able to neutralize threats that could harm civilian populations or military personnel appeals to my desire to make a meaningful contribution to security operations. Also, the technical challenges involved in understanding different types of explosive devices would provide continuous learning opportunities. Ms. Carter nodded and continued with questions about Sarah's financial history, foreign contacts, and any potentially compromising relationships or activities. The thoroughness of the inquiry was impressive, covering details that Sarah hadn't expected anyone to investigate. However, she had nothing to hide and answered each question directly and honestly. After 30 minutes of questioning, Ms. Carter closed her folder and turned to Staff Sergeant Rodriguez.
I have everything I need for the final evaluation.
The subject appears to meet all security requirements for the proposed assignment level. Rodriguez nodded and opened his own folder containing what appeared to be official orders documents. Martinez, based on the recommendation of Commander Hayes and the successful completion of your security clearance investigation, you're being temporarily assigned to Naval Special Warfare Development Group for a 6-week training evaluation program. Sarah felt a wave of excitement and relief wash over her as the reality of what Rodriguez had said began to sink in. After 2 weeks of uncertainty, she was actually being selected for the opportunity Commander Hayes had described. At the same time, she realized this was just the beginning of a much more challenging process that would determine her ultimate suitability for the work. The training program begins Monday morning at Naval Base Coronado in California, Rodriguez continued. You'll receive specialized instruction in advanced weapons systems, tactical communications, close protection protocols, and operational planning. Successful completion of the program may lead to permanent assignment opportunities with various special operations units. Ms. Carter interjected with additional guidance about security requirements.
Martinez, the training program and any subsequent assignments will involve exposure to classified information and operational details. You're required to maintain absolute discretion about all aspects of your activities. Unauthorized disclosure of any information could result in criminal prosecution and termination of your military career.
I understand the security requirements, ma'am, Sarah replied seriously. I won't discuss any aspects of the training or assignments with unauthorized personnel, including family members and friends. Rodriguez handed her a thick envelope containing travel orders, training schedules, and administrative instructions.
You have 3 days to complete transition procedures here and arrange transportation to California. Report to Commander Hayes at Naval Base Coronado no later than 0800 hours Monday morning. Any questions about the administrative aspects of your reassignment? Sarah reviewed the documents quickly while formulating her questions. Sergeant, what should I tell personnel at the ammunition depot about my departure? And, will I be able to return to my previous assignment if I'm not selected for permanent special operations work? Your official cover story is temporary assignment to advanced security training. Don't elaborate beyond that. If you're not selected for permanent reassignment, you'll return to complete your original tour at the depot. However, the additional training and security clearance will likely lead to other advancement opportunities within your current unit. Ms. Carter added final guidance about contact procedures during training. You'll receive a secure communication device that allows authorized contact with family members. All personal communications will be monitored for security purposes. Emergency contact information has been provided to your immediate family through proper channels. The meeting concluded with handshakes and wishes for success in the upcoming training. As Sarah left Building 7 with her orders and instructions, she felt a profound sense that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't fully anticipate. The routine security assignment at the ammunition depot was ending, replaced by challenges that would test every aspect of her military preparation and personal character. The drive back to the depot gave her time to process the magnitude of what was happening.
Within 3 days, she would be training with Navy SEALs and other elite personnel in programs designed to prepare specialists for the military's most demanding assignments. Success could lead to a career path beyond anything she had originally imagined when she first enlisted. Sergeant Williams was waiting when she returned to relieve Corporal Thompson from temporary duty. His expression suggested he suspected something significant had occurred, though he respected military discretion about personnel matters that might involve classified information.
Everything handled satisfactorily?
Williams asked as Sarah resumed her duties at the monitoring station.
Yes, Sergeant. I received orders for temporary additional training assignment.
I'll be departing Monday morning to complete 6 weeks of advanced instruction. Sarah kept her explanation general while providing enough information to allow Williams to understand the timeline for her departure.
Williams nodded with understanding that came from years of military experience. Advanced training opportunities don't come along often.
Make the most of whatever they're offering you, and remember that the habits you've developed here will serve you well in more challenging environments.
Over the next 3 days, Sarah completed administrative procedures for her temporary reassignment while mentally preparing for training that would be unlike anything she had experienced.
She arranged for personal belongings to be stored, completed medical and dental checkups required for special operations personnel, and reviewed study materials about advanced military subjects. Her final shift at the ammunition depot carried emotional weight she hadn't expected. The routine security work that had sometimes felt monotonous now seemed like a peaceful foundation for the unknown challenges ahead. Sergeant Williams and other personnel had become colleagues she respected and trusted, making departure more difficult than anticipated. "Martinez," Williams said during her final inspection tour, "I want you to know that you've set a high standard here. You've proven that dedication and attention to detail matter more than experience when it comes to handling important responsibilities. Whatever advanced training you're heading for, they're getting someone who knows how to do things right." The compliment meant more to Sarah than elaborate praise from higher-ranking officers might have. Williams had watched her work daily and had seen both her successes and her struggles to master depot operations.
His assessment was based on practical observation rather than theoretical evaluation.
Sunday evening, Sarah packed her gear and prepared for the flight to California. The training program would begin with intensive physical conditioning, followed by instruction in subjects she could only imagine. Commander Hayes had warned that not everyone who looked promising would survive the full selection process, but Sarah felt confident that her foundation would support whatever challenges lay ahead. As she reviewed her orders one final time, Sarah realized that her encounter with Commander Hayes at the ammunition depot had been far more than a random inspection. He had been evaluating her potential for assignments that would require technical competence, personal courage, and unwavering commitment to mission success.
Whether she measured up to those standards would be determined over the next 6 weeks.
The flight to California departed early Monday morning, carrying Sarah toward a future she couldn't have imagined when she first walked through the gates of the ammunition depot. The young soldier who had been nervous about proving herself in a security assignment was about to discover capabilities she didn't know she possessed. Commander Hayes would be waiting at Naval Base Coronado with training programs designed to prepare personnel for operations at the extremes of military capability. Sarah's performance during those 6 weeks would determine whether she returned to routine assignments or embarked on a career path that would take her into situations where failure meant consequences far beyond personal disappointment. The airplane climbed through morning clouds as Sarah studied briefing materials about naval special warfare training facilities. In a few hours, she would begin discovering whether her determination and preparation were sufficient for the challenges that elite military units routinely faced. The ammunition depot had been her proving ground, but California would reveal whether she truly had what it took to operate at the highest levels of military service. Below the aircraft, the landscape stretched toward horizons that seemed to symbolize the unlimited possibilities ahead. Sarah's journey from ammunition depot security to potential special operations assignment represented the kind of career progression that motivated soldiers to push beyond their perceived limitations in pursuit of meaningful service and personal growth.
The next 6 weeks would test every aspect of her preparation while revealing capabilities she didn't yet know she possessed.
Whether she ultimately succeeded or discovered her limitations, the experience would provide lessons that would influence the rest of her military career and personal development. The training program at Naval Base Coronado exceeded every expectation Sarah had formed about military instruction. Commander Hayes had assembled a curriculum that blended physical conditioning, technical education, and psychological preparation in ways that pushed trainees beyond their comfort zones while building capabilities they didn't know they possessed. Each day brought challenges that seemed impossible until they were overcome through determination and teamwork. Sarah's group consisted of 12 personnel from different military branches, each selected for specific skills that contributed to special operations effectiveness. She was the only woman and one of the youngest participants, factors that initially drew skepticism from some trainees who questioned whether she belonged in such an elite program. However, her performance during the first week quickly established her credibility and earned respect from even the most doubtful colleagues. The physical conditioning component alone would have eliminated most military personnel. Daily runs covered distances that seemed to expand each morning, while obstacle courses tested agility, strength, and problem-solving under exhaustion. Sarah discovered that her smaller size was actually advantageous in certain situations, allowing her to navigate tight spaces and maintain speed when larger trainees struggled with endurance. Commander Hayes observed every training evolution with the analytical eye of someone who had seen countless personnel succeed or fail under similar pressures. He rarely offered encouragement or criticism, instead allowing performance to speak for itself while taking detailed notes about each trainee's response to various challenges. Sarah sensed that his evaluation process was far more complex than simple pass or fail assessments. The technical training covered advanced weapons systems, electronic surveillance equipment, communication security protocols, and operational planning methodologies. Sarah's background with ammunition depot systems provided an unexpected foundation for understanding explosive ordnance and demolitions training. Her questions demonstrated both technical curiosity and practical thinking that impressed the instructors. Martinez, Commander Hayes said during a break between demolitions exercises, "Your grasp of explosive principles is stronger than some personnel with years of EOD experience. Have you considered focusing your career development in that direction?" The question carried implications about Sarah's future that went beyond the current training program. Commander Hayes seemed to be evaluating not just her immediate capabilities but her potential for long-term contribution to special operations missions. Such consideration suggested she was performing at levels that warranted serious career planning discussions. "Sir, I've always been interested in EOD work, but I want to understand all aspects of special operations before committing to a specific specialty. This training is showing me capabilities I didn't know existed within the military. I'd like to complete the program and see where my strengths are most valuable to the team mission." Commander Hayes nodded approvingly. Smart approach. Specialists who understand the broader operational context make better decisions when facing unexpected situations. You'll have opportunities to explore different specialties during the advanced phase of training. The advanced phase began during the 4th week and introduced scenarios that simulated real-world special operations challenges. Training exercises involved multiple days in field environments where trainees had to accomplish complex missions while managing fatigue, equipment failures, and constantly changing tactical situations. Sarah excelled in these exercises, demonstrating leadership abilities that complemented her technical skills. One particularly challenging exercise required the team to infiltrate a simulated enemy facility, gather intelligence, and exfiltrate without detection. Sarah was assigned as the communications specialist, responsible for maintaining contact with support elements while coordinating team movements through hostile territory. The mission lasted 48 hours and tested every aspect of their training. Halfway through the exercise, their primary communication equipment failed due to environmental conditions that hadn't been anticipated in the mission planning. Sarah had to improvise alternative communication methods using backup equipment while simultaneously performing her other duties as part of the infiltration team. Her solutions kept the mission on track when failure of communication could have resulted in simulated casualties. Outstanding adaptability under pressure, Commander Hayes commented during the post-exercise debrief. Equipment failures are inevitable in real operations, and personnel who can solve problems while maintaining mission focus are invaluable. Martinez demonstrated exactly the kind of thinking that keeps teams alive in hostile environments. The praise was satisfying, but Sarah remained focused on continuous improvement rather than celebrating individual achievements. She had learned that special operations success depended on team performance, and individual recognition was meaningful only when it contributed to overall mission effectiveness. This mindset had become natural during the intensive training environment. During the 5th week, trainees received instruction in close protection protocols for high-value personnel in dangerous environments. This training covered threat assessment, defensive tactics, and coordination with other security elements during complex operations. Sarah discovered that her depot security experience provided excellent preparation for understanding layered security concepts and potential vulnerability points. The close protection training culminated in a realistic exercise where trainees had to escort a simulated dignitary through an environment containing multiple potential threats. Sarah was assigned as part of the advanced security team responsible for identifying and neutralizing dangers before the primary protection detail arrived with their charge. Her performance during this exercise was exceptional. She identified 3 potential threat scenarios that other trainees missed, coordinated effectively with team members to address security concerns, and adapted quickly when the exercise introduced unexpected complications. Commander Hayes observed her work with particular attention, taking extensive notes about her decision-making process and leadership style. "Martinez," he said after the exercise concluded, "I want to discuss potential assignment options with you. Your performance throughout the program has been consistently outstanding, and there are several opportunities that might interest you. Do you have time for a detailed conversation about your career plans?" Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension as they walked to Commander Hayes' office for what seemed like a career-defining discussion. The training program was nearly complete, and decisions about permanent assignments were apparently being made based on individual performance and operational requirements. The office was spartanly furnished but contained maps, photographs, and awards that hinted at Commander Hayes' extensive operational experience. Sarah noticed images from various global locations where special operations units had conducted missions, suggesting the breadth of assignments that might be available to personnel who successfully completed advanced training. "Martinez, your performance during this program has exceeded expectations in several important areas," Commander Hayes began as they settled into chairs around a small conference table. "Technical competence, physical conditioning, leadership potential, and adaptability under stress. These qualities make you suitable for multiple types of assignments within the special operations community." He opened a folder containing what appeared to be assignment options and evaluation summaries. "I have 3 potential assignments to discuss with you. Each offers different advantages for your career development, but they also involve different types of risks and challenges. I want to make sure you understand what each option entails before making any decisions." Sarah listened carefully as Commander Hayes described the first option, assignment to a maritime security unit that protected naval facilities and high-value vessels in international waters. The work would involve extended deployments aboard ships and extensive travel to various global locations where American naval interests required protection. The second option was assignment to a counter-terrorism unit that worked closely with federal law enforcement agencies to address domestic security threats. This work would involve significant time in urban environments and coordination with civilian agencies that had different operational procedures than military units. The third option was the most intriguing, assignment to Commander Hayes' own unit, which specialized in high-risk security missions for senior government officials traveling to dangerous areas overseas. This work would combine elements of close protection, intelligence gathering, and tactical operations in some of the world's most challenging environments. Each of these assignments would provide valuable experience and career advancement opportunities, Commander Hayes explained. However, my unit's missions involve the highest level of operational risk and the most demanding security requirements. Personnel assigned to my team can expect frequent deployments to locations where political instability creates constant danger. Sarah considered the options carefully while asking detailed questions about training requirements, deployment schedules, and long-term career implications. All 3 assignments represented significant advancement beyond her original military trajectory, but Commander Hayes' unit offered the greatest opportunity for professional growth and meaningful contribution to important missions. "Sir, I'm most interested in assignment to your unit," she said after careful consideration. "The combination of technical challenges, leadership opportunities, and mission importance appeals to everything I hope to find in military service. I understand the risks involved, but I believe the training I've received has prepared me to handle those challenges effectively." Commander Hayes smiled for the first time since she had met him at the ammunition depot weeks earlier. "I was hoping you'd make that choice. Your performance during training convinced me that you have the capabilities needed for our type of work, but I wanted to make sure you understood the commitment involved. Personnel who join my unit become part of a team that handles situations where failure isn't an option." The conversation continued with detailed discussion about assignment procedures, additional training requirements, and the lifestyle changes that came with special operations work. Sarah would receive 2 weeks of specialized instruction in diplomatic security protocols before joining Commander Hayes' team for operational assignments that could begin immediately afterward. As they concluded the meeting, Sarah realized that her journey from ammunition depot security to elite special operations had been more rapid and dramatic than she had ever imagined possible. The routine assignment that had seemed like a stepping stone toward future opportunities had directly led to career advancement that typically required years of military service to achieve. Martinez, Commander Hayes said as they prepared to leave his office, "I want you to know that your selection for my unit is based on demonstrated performance rather than potential. You've already proven you have what it takes to succeed in challenging assignments. The question now is whether you can maintain that level of performance when the stakes become real rather than simulated." 2 weeks later, Sarah completed her specialized training and officially joined Commander Hayes' unit as they prepared for a mission to provide security for a diplomatic delegation visiting a region where recent terrorist attacks had made travel extremely dangerous. Her first operational assignment would involve protecting senior government officials while they conducted negotiations that could affect American interests throughout the Middle East. The mission briefing revealed the complexity and importance of work that special operations personnel routinely handled. Multiple intelligence agencies had provided threat assessments indicating serious dangers throughout the planned itinerary, requiring security measures that went far beyond normal diplomatic protection protocols. Sarah's role would involve advanced reconnaissance, threat evaluation, and direct protection duties during high-risk public appearances. As she prepared her equipment for the upcoming deployment, Sarah reflected on the transformation that had occurred since her nervous first day at the ammunition depot. The young soldier who had worried about proving herself capable of routine security work was now preparing for assignments that would test every aspect of her training and character in environments where mistakes could have international consequences. Commander Hayes had recognized something in her that she hadn't yet discovered about herself during that unexpected inspection visit months earlier. His evaluation had set in motion a chain of events that revealed capabilities she possessed but hadn't been challenged to demonstrate. The ammunition depot assignment had been preparation for something much more significant than she could have imagined. The airplane carrying her toward her first operational mission climbed through evening clouds while Sarah reviewed intelligence reports about the threats they would face. Her teammates included some of the most experienced special operations personnel in the military, and she felt honored to contribute to their mission while continuing to learn from their expertise. Below the aircraft, lights from cities and towns created patterns that reminded her of the monitoring systems she had once watched at the depot. The same attention to detail and commitment to excellence that had made her successful in that assignment would now be applied to challenges that could affect national security and international relationships. Sarah's story had evolved from proving herself worthy of ammunition depot security to becoming a trusted member of an elite unit protecting America's most important diplomatic missions. The journey had revealed that dedication, competence, and courage could lead to opportunities beyond anything that seemed possible when viewed from the perspective of routine assignments. Commander Hayes had seen potential in a young soldier who was simply doing her best at whatever task was assigned to her. His recognition and mentorship had unlocked capabilities that might have remained dormant in conventional military roles. The ammunition depot had been Sarah's first test, but it had prepared her for challenges that would define the rest of her career and life. As the aircraft continued toward its destination, Sarah knew that she was beginning the most important phase of her military service. The training was complete, and real-world missions lay ahead that would determine whether she could fulfill the potential that Commander Hayes had recognized during their first meeting. The ammunition depot assignment had been preparation for this moment, though neither of them had realized it at the time. Her transformation from security guard to special operations specialist represented the kind of career advancement that exemplified the military's ability to develop human potential when dedication met opportunity. Sarah's story was far from over, but the foundation built during those early days at the depot would support whatever challenges and achievements lay ahead in her continuing service to her country.